Hi everyone, this is Small Form Factor J, and this will be my first review ever. What I have here is the ZSA4 case. It's a 5.5 liter case from Taobao, which is a Chinese website. I was able to get my hands on them. The case is very nice. It's very sturdy. As you can see, the material is aluminum metal, so you're not getting flimsy material. The case is very compact. It's really small in real life, and as you can see, it supports a reference size GPU. I have the mini GPU in here, but if you wanted to, you could fit a large GPU as well. There's plenty of ventilation holes for the air to come in, which is quite nice. It supports a 2-slot, as you can see. It doesn't support anything greater than a 2-slot. So EVGA cards would be perfect. As you can see, it's not lined up perfectly. I had a lot of trouble putting the riser cable in here. Actually, I had a lot of trouble building this case. Compared to the Ghost case that I have, this case was about 5 times harder to build in. And I'll get back to that later. The aluminum frame is quite nice. It uses these hexagonal screws that you see in the corners, so you can't use a typical screwdriver. You would have to buy a new one. But the material is decent. The color is pretty nice, silver, light gray silver. It even has a vandal switch right over here, which lights up white. So, you know, those are a few pluses that I see in this case. So I have the case lined up with the Ghost S1 case here. As you can see, the size comparison, it's not as long as the Ghost, nor is it as wide as the Ghost. It's actually about 2/3 the width, and that means you're gonna get a much smaller CPU cooler. I know that the Ghost has a 66mm clearance. This one has about 37mm clearance for a CPU cooler. As you can see, the size difference is pretty substantial. You'll definitely notice it if you're trying to fit it in your bag or trying to travel with it. So I have the case panel on. This is the motherboard side. What's a little strange about this one is that I had the seller actually cut out the panel where the CPU cooler will go because I wanted to fit an oversized cooler that flows out of the case, and that's why you see this giant hole right here. For now, I just put in this weak stock Intel cooler while I'm looking for something else, but I just haven't had the time to replace it. But you know, for now, you know, I just have a weak i3 in there, so it doesn't really do anything. But if I didn't have the cutout, it would have the ventilated holes as you saw on the GPU side, the same hexagon holes, so there's still plenty of ventilation even if you don't get a cutout like I did. So this is the motherboard side. I have the Flex PSU in here. This is 400 watt, $90 PSU you can find on Amazon. Really compact, and this case doesn't take an SFX power supply. So anyway, everything's jammed in here. As you can see, the wires are going everywhere. I'm sorry about the cable management. I have everything jammed in here. I actually cut some of the wires from the PSU because it's non-modular, so I had no other choice to reduce the volume, and I put heat shrink over it and put electrical tape over it, so it helped a lot. But if you don't know how to do this, then I don't recommend you do it because it can be a little dangerous. But in my case, you know, it was pretty easy, so you know, it helped me build this case. As for the space for the 2.5 drive, I don't think there's really much space. I had to use an M.2 drive, and that's fine, but maybe you could fit a small solid state on the back, but you know, I don't really recommend you go. I just recommend you go M.2 drive here. The material of the case itself is very small. I know I keep repeating this, but it really is. I've never seen a case this small. And you have space for two 80mm, I think 10mm thickness fans here. It should help with thermals a little bit. And then you have the top for the outlet here where the power cable goes. Everything's just jammed in here. And again, the thermals you know, I think it's manageable. And then here in the back you have the IO shield, and you have the solid frame. The material is actually not that bad. For especially for a Chinese case, I was pretty surprised. You know, it still uses these hexagonal screws, which kind of annoy me, but the panels, the thickness of the panels are not ghost thickness, but it was pretty decently thick, so I appreciated that. As for the lightness, you know, the case is fairly light, as you can expect from a small case. But you're gonna pay about $100 for this case, so you know, for $100 this is not a bad case. However, I do have a criticism when it comes to building this case, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I'll show you guys here on this side as well. And here we have the side view of the case. This is going to be the sandwich format that everyone is quite used to. We're looking at the motherboard side on the left side. There's nothing really that stands out about this case, which can be a good thing to some of you guys who like this format. Personally, I'm a big fan of the sandwich format. I think it separates the motherboard and the GPU heat, so it keeps the hottest parts away from each other. I have the top. I'm showing you guys the top. It's got the same ventilated honeycomb holes that we saw on the side panels. You know, I like these. It looks okay aesthetic wise, and you know, everything else is good. And we have the power button cable here. It's not sleeved, but you know, it's $100 case, so it's what you get. You pay for what you get. The format's gonna be the power supply on the right, and then the motherboard on the left. There's some holes here where you can slide the GPU riser cable, but one of the biggest challenge I had with building this case is that to try to push that 6-pin connector from the power supply to the GPU, and these holes were not, you know, that one on the right, you can't fit it, and then on the left, the GPU riser cable is going through it. So it was a little bit challenging to put that through. And the way that the case is built is that for you to route the cables through, you would have to take out the bottom and top before you put the wires through. So unless you had everything planned in the beginning, it's really difficult to build in this case, because then you would have to take out the bottom panel. But for you to take out the bottom panel, you would have to take out the side panel, and then you would have to take out the bars, these little bars that connect the sides, and then you would have to put it back all on after you put the wires through. And as you can see, the bottom panel also has the same holes, plenty of ventilation. The feet are raised, so airflow is going to reach the bottom no matter what, which is always something that I like to see in these really small cases. And I'm just showing you guys the other side. This is the GPU side. Pretty straightforward, clean. There's actually a plastic panel that was covering this big hole, but I just decided to take it out just because show you guys a much better view of the case. And then if you lift up the case, you'll see these 4 rubber feet, and they're fairly standard. They're not too big. I don't like to see the too big ones. You know, it kind of takes away from the small form factor. But these are big enough, while being small, to lift the case up enough for plenty of air to go through. Overall, I had mixed feelings about this case. It's good quality for the $100 you spend, but if you factor in the shipping costs from China, then it's not a cheap case if you live in the US. The case is very compact. It's small. I mean, the only difficulty, which is a big one in my opinion, was the difficulty of building in this case and the way it's assembled. But anyway, that's my review of the ZS A4S. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, and what I can do better. It's my first review, so I'm sure it was pretty crappy. But thank you guys for watching.